All right, guys, we are days away from Sunday, and we want to bring you this one last video, this one last push of running backs that you can either be buying or selling before the season starts to get on your team before they blow up and or don't have a good season. So I'm bringing you 5 running backs once again, so make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below any questions, trade sit, or start sit, trade questions that you have coming in to this year. We're going to be answering every single comment down below. Let's see if we can get to 150 likes. Let's not waste any more time. Go straight into our first running back. Let's start at the sell position here. Okay, Raheem Mostert. Obviously, so much has changed with Raheem. Jeff Wilson is on IR, going to be missing the first 4 weeks of this season, and I think that is a huge deal. Okay, not only that, Devon Achane has been dealing with injuries coming. He got injured in preseason. He had a shoulder injury, and we're not necessarily sure, as I'm recording this video, if Devon is going to be even ready for week 1. English is hard. So if that's the case, Raheem could be the only running back there, and that means they might bring in another guy like a Kareem Hunt. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins were also front runners for Jonathan Taylor, and that deal can still get done here. Yes, he may miss the first 4 weeks, but if that trade does happen, Raheem Mostert value is going to plummet once Jonathan Taylor is off the PUP list. Okay, so many different scenarios. I mean, they can once again bring in Kareem Hunt off the street, and when Kareem Hunt does come off, hypothetically comes to this team, to Miami Dolphins, who he has been rumored to be, connected to. What is Raheem Mostert's value going to look like then and there once Kareem Hunt is in the building? We've seen the success Kareem has had, obviously, with the Cleveland Browns. Has been a great pass catching back, goal line guy, and in between the tackles type of runner. So I do believe he is going to bring value. If it's not Raheem, even a Leonard Fournette is still out there that can bring a veteran presence to this team. Now, another thing that I really want to hit on when I think of Raheem Mostert is the injury history. Okay, we haven't seen too much success from Raheem in a career, in a seasonal standpoint, when we think of Raheem Mostert. When you go all the way back to 2016 till this past year, his highest fantasy finish was RB24 as a whole. Okay, he's also been averaging since 2015 to this past year 8.4 games per year. If you're going to get somebody that can't even play just only half the season, I'm not necessarily sure if I want to be having him and hoping that he's going to be the lead back here for the next 4 weeks. Every single year we say, oh, we love Raheem, can he stay healthy? And then, he runs it for a 30-yard play. Maybe he has 15 fantasy points, and then he gets injured, and then he misses 2 or 3 games. That is the Raheem Mostert that we're dealing with coming right now. Okay, so if I can, I'm going to be trying to trade him away for some sort of value that I can be getting for him right now. Now, you guys may have done your drafts, and Raheem may have risen a little bit, so it all depends on your draft. But I'm going to go based off of one of my latest drafts with our community and where Raheem has went, and maybe where you guys can pivot right now to try and trade Raheem away and tell you players that you should be potentially acquiring that has a higher, longer season upside than a Raheem Mostert. Okay, I would say someone like Ezekiel Elliott. Let's start off right there. Zeke, who a lot of people do believe is going to be taking the goal line touches away from Raheem Mostert. If that is truly the case, I do believe Zeke can be this guy that can still finish. I mean, we saw this past year, still finish as a top 25 running back. I do believe Zeke is a better value there. What about a Romeo Doubs, who looked very favorable to Jordan Love as a second wide receiver on this team potentially? I believe, once again, better seasonal, longer value if you can go out and get a Romeo Doubs. What about a Jaylen Warren, who could be the Austin Eckler type player to a Najee Harris, or Tony Pollard type player to a Najee Harris, who has also seen a significant amount of work in the preseason games, specifically in the end zone? I think that is something that can be of value. What about a Rashad Bateman? I know he's in question. What about those injuries? I'd rather have the upside and of a wide receiver depth on my team than someone that like a Raheem Mostert, who his fantasy season can switch in a blink of an eye, right? You can also think of someone like a Rashad Penny if you believe in him. What about a Jet McKinnon, who was a top 20 running back this past year? You can go, the list goes on to all the running backs or wide receivers that you can go out and try and pivot to off of Raheem Mostert, who once again has a significant injury history. I mean, we can go all the way. I mean, let me list off some injuries that Raheem has had since 2020. MCL sprain. Left that game with a high ankle sprain, another high ankle sprain. He missed practice due to a knee issue. He had a shoulder injury. He had another knee issue. He fractured his forearm, suffered a concussion, had a calf injury, suffered another knee injury. I mean, there is so many ways and so many times that Raheem Mostert has been hurt. He has an 85% chance, according to Draft Sharks, of him missing, at least 2/4 of the season coming into the 2023 season. Those are not chances that I want to be taking coming into this year with Raheem Mostert. So if I can, I'm going to be pivoting off and trying to sell Raheem before week 1. All right, let's go into the buy section for the running backs here. Guy that I've been raving on all off season, and I think people are starting to catch up, especially with the news of one of his teammates, and that is Cam Akers. Yes, Cooper Kupp could be missing, weeks, multiple weeks coming in the first half of the season. We've all have seen how these hamstring injuries have, been dealt with. Obviously, every injury is different, but if we had to see the most recent history with someone like a Keenan Allen, who is an older wide receiver who did deal with a hamstring injury this past year and missed the first half of the season. It was about the first 10 to 9 games. I'm not saying Cooper Kupp has the same injury or can be missing that amount of time, but what if he does? What if he misses that time? Cam Akers could be lent on significantly this year, just like he was in the second half of the season when Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp was no longer on the field. And let me remind you, weeks 13 to 18, over 100 attempts on the ground. He was averaging 17 attempts per game, over 500 yards on the ground, averaging 85 yards per game, 6 touchdowns, over 17 fantasy points within that span, and he finished as the RB4 from weeks 13 to 18. I don't know if you guys remember, but he was a league winner. He may not have the best season start this past year, but Cam Akers at this very moment, it is somebody that can be significantly be of value to you and your team. If you need an RB2, if you need an RB3, whatever the case may be, Cam Akers, in my opinion, could easily start rising up in the rankings and have a significant fantasy finish if Cooper Kupp is missing significant time for this team. And now players that, once again, I'm going based off of my draft, the way your draft and however way people value could be very different. But here are some people that I would be trading away just purely based off of situations that you try to predict throughout the season. And the same thing with Cam Akers, right? What about someone like a Dalvin Cook? We all expect, Breece Hall to come back and be healthy by the second half of the season. I don't see Cam Akers, unless he gets, seriously injured, which I hope he doesn't. But I don't see Cam Akers, losing any type of workload from anyone else from this team. What about the DeAndre Swift, who is in question with Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell? What about someone like a Hollywood Brown? This one's very interesting. As much as I love Hollywood and how talented he is, I love him in Dynasty, but who's the quarterback? He's going to be rotating by 2-3 different quarterbacks potentially, depending on when Kyler Murray comes back. You have Clayton Tune and Josh Dobbs. We just don't know who's going to be the first quarterback there. Maybe Hollywood Brown has a good second half of the season, but I think I want to lean on Cam Akers right now if I need to. What about someone like an Isaiah Pacheco? Right, once again, he went about 6 spots after Cam Akers. People believe in Isaiah Pacheco because he is linked to Patrick Mahomes. Okay, once again, so many guys that you can go out and trade away to acquire someone like a Cam Akers. So once again, from weeks 13 to 18 was a top 5 running back, and he was a league winner this past year. So if I were you, I'll be trying to acquire Cam Akers before week 1. All right, before I get to my next player, guys, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and go to flockfantasy.com, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here. You want in-season rankings? We got you. You want our fantasy hotline to say, hey, who the hell should I start and sit in this week? We have that hotline, that opportunity to have a chat with myself or Zach, a personal chat with myself and Zach, and give you any type of advice on your call, on your time, obviously within our means. Our rankings, our bonus articles, bonus content, and so much more, all in-season opportunities when it comes into Flock Fantasy. So once again, flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here, in-season rankings, articles, hotlines, bonus content, and so much more. Go check it out, and let's get straight into my next player. My second must-buy running back coming onto my list here is Miles Sanders. I love Miles Sanders coming into this year. I think a lot of people do love him as well. And I think there is some good opportunity for you to kind of dive into this, right? Now, let me just tell you exactly why you should be getting him. There is so much opportunity that's going to be coming to Miles Sanders' way. Let me remind you what he did this past year. He was obviously on the Philadelphia Eagles, finished RB 13 on the year, and had a phenomenal year. Okay, right? Over 250 attempts on the ground, over 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns on the ground. One of the biggest things that was so frustrating about Miles Sanders was that this was his lowest career, attempts and targets in the air for Miles Sanders. But now that he's going to the Carolina Panthers, where this offense is completely different, where they love to pepper the running back position, which we've seen in the past. We've seen CMC get all the ball in the air. Get the ball in the air and on the ground. We've seen Deontay Foreman when CMC was traded to get the ball in the air and on the ground, where he was a good top 15 running back last year when CMC was traded in that spans. Now that Miles Sanders is with this Carolina Panthers offense, there's some opportunity for him. He is going back with his old running back coach in Deuce Staley, who was in Philly his rookie year in 2019. Do you remember that year when he was finished RB 15 and he had a season high, a career high of catching 50 receptions for 63 targets? That was his highest production in the air, 79% catch rate, over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns that year for Miles Sanders in the air. Some of his best work. Now he's going back with Deuce Staley, who knows how to use Miles Sanders in the right way. We know what this offense is going to look like. And the running back position is a rookie's quarterback's best friend. Bryce Young is a phenomenal quarterback. We all expect him to be great. But one thing we do know, if he's going to be scrambling, if he's going to be out of the pocket, if this pocket is going to collapse in however shape or form, Miles Sanders is going to be there to catch the ball out in the air. So that's exactly why I want to be trying to acquire Miles Sanders. Now, Miles Sanders has also been rising up draft boards and has been going higher and higher in some state, depending on where your team has taken him. Here are some players I would try and sell to acquire someone like a Miles Sanders. First person I think of is Chris Godwin. Look, I'm really off of Chris Godwin right now, and you're probably going to see this in another video of players that you should be selling high coming here soon, whether you've seen that video, whether it's out now or coming out after this video. But Chris Godwin, I just don't trust in Baker Mayfield's, right? I'd rather trust in someone like honestly, a Bryce Young and a Miles Sanders who has the history of success in the quarterback position, unlike Baker Mayfield, who hasn't produced, which sounds crazy because Bryce Young is a rookie quarterback, okay? I know it sounds crazy, but I would rather have Miles Sanders right now. I just feel a lot more confident in Miles Sanders and Chris Godwin. You think of someone like a DeAndre Swift as well, right? You think of someone like an Alvin Kamara, who, as much as I love Alvin, can you really, do you want to wait on the 3-week suspension? If you do and you can, that's great. If you don't, why don't you try and trade him away and try to acquire Miles Sanders, DeAndre Swift, and Alexander Madison, or Javonte Williams? These are all players that you can trade away to acquire a Miles Sanders. Once again, his rookie season, I kind of expect him to have the same amount of targets that he's had his rookie season. 50 receptions, 63 targets that year, over 500 yards. I will not be surprised if Miles Sanders mimics something like that in 2019 coming in to the 2023 season. All right, let's go to the sell side of this video again. Another running back, and I think a lot of people won't like this, but Dalvin Cook. And look, this is a lot of projecting and predicting when it comes down to Dalvin Cook. You think of this offense and you think of Breece Hall coming back to this team, right? Whenever that is. But the real question is, when is Breece Hall going to come back to 100%? The prediction with that, and I think consensus with the fantasy community, is that Breece Hall is going to come back full strength probably by the second half of the season. Now, you're saying, well, they paid Dalvin Cook, $8 million to play 1 year. They're going to utilize him. You're right. They are going to utilize him, maybe in the passing game. But how much of the utilization are we expecting? Is that a 50% workload? Is that a 40% workload? He is not going to get more, in my opinion, in the second half of the season specifically than a Breece Hall. Once Breece Hall is healthy, has his legs underneath him, has gotten hit, has played multiple games, maybe by week 5, week 6, I do see Breece Hall taking 60 to 70% of the snap share, but Dalvin Cook really getting the 30% workload, maybe specifically in the air. Maybe he gets a couple touchdowns. What if he plays the Jamal Williams type of role? Or vice versa. Maybe Breece Hall's playing the Jamal Williams type of role in the first half of the season, and Dalvin's getting all the work. My thing is, in this perspective, I'm not saying Dalvin is cooked, or it's oddly enough, I'm not saying Dalvin is bad, or he doesn't have it anymore. I'm thinking of, okay, is Dalvin going to be somebody I want to be starting week in and week out when I know Breece Hall is going to be 100% in the second half of the season, week 9, week 10, week 11, when those weeks are crucial for you? Can you sell Dalvin Cook now at his peak before Breece Hall is back to 100%, and we're seeing the transition with Breece coming back onto the field and taking that production away? So once again, I'm not saying this is more of a projection and a predicting. It's really hard to bring the facts of, okay, well, who's going to take over the backfield? When is that going to happen? We just don't know, because it's a guessing game when it comes down to Breece Hall. But, if you can sell Dalvin Cook to somebody that could get the workload where he's currently going right now in some leagues, I think that is actually really exciting, right? I think of someone like a James Cook, which sounds crazy. Can I sell Dalvin Cook to get his brother James Cook, who's getting the majority, in my opinion, of the workload in the air and in first and second down, or excuse me, third down and in the air, right? Where Damian Harris is going to be getting projection, the first and second down workload and goal line. I think James Cook can easily eat in the air if you want week in and week out. What about someone like a Rachaad White, who is getting drafted after Dalvin Cook, who has no competition around him outside of Sean Tucker, who, as much as I love Sean Tucker, when is he really going to take, touches away from Rachaad White? What about someone like a David Montgomery, who, is getting the 50-50 workload, but we've seen that outwork and that workload, what that looked like for the Detroit Lions with Jamal Williams, right, and DeAndre Swift. We are projecting Monty to be the goal line running back for that offense, right? That just feels a lot more safe, a lot more comfortable. Same thing, what about someone like an Alvin Kamara? You can wait for the suspension, but I've been predicting that Alvin Kamara is going to come back and be this guy specifically in the workload, getting goal line touches. He's going to be the number one running back on this team once he is back and healthy. You can even pivot to a wide receiver. Can you get a Christian Kirk, who is going after Dalvin Cook in some leagues right now? Can you get a Deontay Johnson potentially going after Dalvin Cook, a Brandon Ayuk, a Jordan Addison, a Quentin Johnson, and Elijah Moore? These are some people that I would rather have over Dalvin Cook right now, because I believe in the second half of their season, their upside is going to be significantly higher than Dalvin Cook once Breece Hall is back to 100%. So once again, not saying Dalvin Cook is not good, not saying Dalvin Cook won't get probably production in the first half of the season, but I don't think we want to see, it's like, okay, hypothetically, week 1 plays out, Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall has a 50-50 workload. You won't be able to sell Dalvin after week 1. I don't think anyone is going to want to pivot off of Dalvin or want to buy Dalvin, because they're going to see, well, Breece Hall is clearly better, but he still hasn't have his legs underneath him. When is that going to happen in the middle of the season? So once again, projecting, but if I were you, I will be selling Dalvin Cook as soon as possible before week 1. Okay, last but not least, let's get into my last buy running back of this list here. That is Bobbin like him Dobbins, two-leg Dobbins, I like to call him now, because he got 2 legs, baby. He is running full steam with 2 legs underneath him, and I am excited for it. If you can go out and try and acquire J.K. Dobbins, that is exactly what I'm going to be doing. I truly believe this offense gets significantly better. There's no way that this team's playing against J.K. Dobbins can stack the box. It's truly difficult. You have Lamar Jackson, J.K. Dobbins, a Zay Flowers, a Rashad Bateman, an Odell Beckham, a Mark Andrews. There's no way you're stacking the box for Josh Jacobs. There's no way that you can't see Josh Jacobs getting the opportunities in between the tackles, and specifically even in the backfield at the running back position, goal line opportunities as well. Yes, Lamar does vulture some touchdowns, but that's okay. We kind of expect that. But if J.K. Dobbins can get 15 to 20 touches and break out for 15, 20, be one of the most efficient running backs on the ground based off of the team around him, I truly believe J.K. Dobbins can do that. And we saw that in the second half of the season this past year with one knee. When he was running down the sideline with one knee, but my guy was averaging over 100 yards. Okay, before I kind of jumped ahead, right? Weeks 14 to 17, you kind of see he was averaging over 11 fantasy points per game. He was only getting 63% of the snaps, averaging 63% of the snaps out of that span. And he was averaging 14 attempts on the ground and just under 100 yards per game. That is crazy when you think of what he was doing with one leg. You go look at the games back then where he was playing at Pittsburgh, and I remember he breaks off on a run the right side of the screen, the top of the screen, and he's limping. He's like, I'm still running. That's J.K. Dobbins with one leg. Imagine J.K. Dobbins with two legs. So look, J.K. Dobbins has the opportunity to be a in my opinion, top 10 running back coming into this year. And I think a lot of people are shaky based off of the new offensive coordinator and Todd Monken, who's coming from Georgia, who's seen a rotation of running backs. We've seen James Cook, we've seen Kenny McIntosh, we've seen the DeAndre Swifts. We've seen all that happen with Todd Monken's offense. But what he does love to do is pepper the running backs in the air, which is also an opportunity that J.K. Dobbins can live up to as well. So players that are currently going around J.K. Dobbins that I feel like you can trade away to acquire him. Maybe you can pivot in different ways. What if you can pivot to trade away someone like a Kenneth Walker to acquire J.K. Dobbins, who does have somebody behind them like a Zach Charbonnet, who has a similar projected workload. Someone like a Chris Godwin, who I kind of mentioned earlier in this video, I would rather have J.K. Dobbins, who doesn't have any competition. A Javonte Williams, who is not 100% right now, but hey, he does also have competition behind him in Samaje Perine, and is he really 100%? These are some players that I would really question to try and trade away. Not question, but I would trade away to acquire someone like a J.K. Dobbins, who I believe, once again, in the longer part, the second half of the season, even in the beginning of the season, has a higher upside coming into week 1. So once again, guys, phenomenal list. J.K. Dobbins, you're buying. Dalvin, you're selling. Miles, you're buying. Cam Akers, you're buying. And Raheem Mostert, you are selling. These are my 5 running backs you should either buy or sell. So make sure you comment down below. Let me know if you have any comments, questions, concerns, any trade questions. Start, sit. We're going to be answering every single comment down below. And honestly, guys, it all comes down to this, okay? It all comes down to how you have to hope that your players perform. We've been giving all the information we possibly can, since last year, since the Super Bowl last year. So I say, we hope all these guys are going to pan off, but now it's all up to them to do it. So once again, guys, we appreciate each and every one of you. Good luck in week 1. And it's all up.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.